I still remember the first moment I saw Tyler, and it feels like it happened yesterday, even though it's been almost a year. It was a late Friday afternoon, and I had just gotten off work early for once. I decided to stop by a local art gallery on a whim, something I rarely did. I was feeling restless after a long week filled with meetings and deadlines at the marketing agency where I worked. The gallery was small and warm, filled with colorful canvases and the quiet hum of jazz playing in the background. I wandered through slowly, letting my mind drift away from work stress, when I saw him. Tyler was standing in front of a large abstract painting, his hands tucked in his pockets, his head tilted slightly as if he were lost inside the colors. He had this quiet confidence, like he was comfortable being alone, but still open to the world around him. He looked up and noticed me standing nearby. I froze for a moment, embarrassed to have been caught staring. But he just smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached his bright green eyes. "What do you see in this one?" he asked, and I laughed because I hadn't expected a stranger to talk to me like that. I shrugged and said, "I see chaos, beautiful, colorful chaos." He chuckled, nodding. "Exactly. It reminds me of how life feels sometimes." His voice was low and comforting, and suddenly, it felt like we were the only two people in that gallery. We ended up talking for almost an hour right there, wandering from painting to painting. Tyler told me he was a freelance photographer, that he loved taking road trips just to catch the perfect sunrise or an unexpected moment on a busy street. I found myself sharing stories I hadn't told anyone in ages, about my love for cooking, my failed attempts at writing a novel, my hidden love for cheesy 90s rom-coms. It felt like we had known each other forever. When the gallery closed, he offered to walk me home. The summer evening was soft and warm, the air filled with the sounds of distant music and people laughing in sidewalk cafes. When we reached my building, we stood awkwardly at the steps for a moment, neither of us ready to say goodbye. "I had a great time," I finally said, feeling shy again. "Me too," he replied, stepping closer. Our eyes met, and before I knew it, he kissed me, slow and gentle, as if he was asking permission with every second. I felt something spark deep inside me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. After we pulled back, I didn't want to let him go. But he did leave that night, and I watched him walk away with my heart beating so loud I thought my neighbors might hear it. We started texting each other constantly after that. I would wake up to good morning texts from him and go to bed with his sweet messages echoing in my mind. We went out on more dates, from quiet dinners in hidden little restaurants to spontaneous weekend drives along the coast. With every day, I felt myself falling deeper and deeper for him. He was attentive and thoughtful, always noticing the small things that made me happy, like how I always needed a blanket on my legs, even in summer, or how I liked my coffee with extra cinnamon. One rainy Saturday evening, I was curled up on my couch in my pajamas, reading a book and listening to the storm outside, when I heard a knock at my door. When I opened it, Tyler stood there, drenched and shivering, his dark hair sticking to his forehead. "I didn't know where else to go," he said softly. I pulled him inside right away, helping him out of his soaked jacket, rubbing his arms to warm him up. "You're always welcome here," I told him, my heart squeezing at the vulnerability in his eyes. I handed him a towel and made us hot tea. We sat on the couch, legs touching, the storm crashing around us, but I felt safe, even peaceful. He looked at me in that intense way he did sometimes, like he was memorizing every part of my face. "Emily," he started, his voice quiet but firm, "I don't want to just come and go anymore. I want to be here with you. All of it. The quiet mornings, the messy days, the laughs and the tears. I want to stay." I felt my chest tighten, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. But then I leaned forward and kissed him, letting my heart answer for me. We kissed slowly at first, tasting the warmth of the tea and the sweetness of that moment. His hands moved to my cheeks, and mine tangled in his damp hair. It felt like every part of me was waking up, coming alive under his touch. I pulled away just enough to whisper, "Stay the night." His eyes softened, and he nodded. "Are you sure?" he asked, his forehead resting against mine. "I've never been more sure," I whispered back. We moved to my bedroom, shedding our fears along with our clothes. Every touch felt new, and yet so deeply familiar. It wasn't just passion, it was connection, trust, and this overwhelming sense of belonging. We laughed in between kisses, shared quiet confessions, and held each other as if we were afraid the other might disappear. That night, as we finally drifted off to sleep, his arm was wrapped firmly around me, his heartbeat steady under my ear. I had never felt so safe, so wanted, so completely seen. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming in and the soft rise and fall of his chest beside me. I stayed still for a long time just watching him sleep. It felt like a dream I didn't want to end. When he finally opened his eyes, he smiled that sleepy, crooked smile I would soon learn to love more than anything. "Morning," he mumbled, pulling me closer. "Morning," I whispered, pressing a kiss to his jaw. We spent the morning in bed, talking and laughing, tracing each other's faces as if learning them by heart. Later, he insisted on making breakfast, though he burned the toast so badly we ended up tossing it and ordering bagels instead. We sat cross-legged on the floor, eating and joking, feeling like two kids in love for the first time. From that night on, everything changed. Tyler began staying over more often. Sometimes he would show up at my door late at night after a photo shoot, and other times he would surprise me with dinner when I had a rough day. We started falling into a rhythm, shared breakfasts, late-night movies, spontaneous dance parties in the kitchen. My apartment, which had always felt a little too big and a little too quiet, suddenly felt alive. We still had our disagreements, like when he left his camera gear all over the living room, or when I insisted on reorganizing the pantry for the third time in a month. But those little fights always ended with apologies whispered into each other's necks and soft kisses that made everything better. One evening, months after that first night, we sat on my balcony with blankets wrapped around us, watching the city lights twinkle below. Tyler turned to me, his eyes reflecting the city glow, and took my hand. "I meant what I said that night," he began softly. "I want this forever. I want you, all of you. Your messy hair in the morning, your weird snack habits, your endless love for bad movies. I want it all." I felt tears slip down my cheeks before I could stop them. "I want that too," I whispered, my voice catching in my throat. He pulled me into his arms, and we sat there for a long time, listening to the sounds of the city and the quiet beat of our hearts. Our relationship wasn't perfect. There were days when we struggled, when work was stressful, or when one of us needed space. But through it all, there was always a sense of coming back to each other. Every night he stayed over, I felt the same comfort and warmth as that first night. I remember one evening when he had to leave for a week-long photography assignment. I stood by the door, trying to be brave, but my heart felt heavy. He cupped my face and said, "I'll always come back to you, Emily. You're my home." And when he returned, he came back with new stories, new pictures, and that same gentle love that had made me fall for him in the first place. Looking back now, I realized that letting him stay that night wasn't just about sharing my bed or my apartment. It was about sharing my life, my fears, my hopes. It was about saying yes to love in its purest, messiest, most beautiful form. When I think of Tyler, I think of that night, the rain, the warmth of his hands, the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the world. I think of mornings wrapped in his arms, our silly dance parties, and the quiet comfort of knowing that I am loved exactly as I am. I never imagined that one rainy night could change everything. But it did. I let him stay, and in doing so, I let love into my life in a way I didn't know was possible. And now, every time I wake up beside him, I am reminded that the best things often start with a single brave choice, a knock on the door, a whispered stay, and a heart willing to say yes.